$1 trillion. Just take a second and let that number really sink in. That's a 1 with 12 zeros. And it's the new estimated net worth of Elon Musk as of today. This comes right on the heels of a genuinely historic, completely market-shaking initial public offering. But honestly, that massive financial milestone, it's really just one piece of what has been an incredibly chaotic, historically dense news day.
So, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to be your guide today. If you're looking for clear, focused insights into the absolute whirlwind of global events from June 12th, 2026, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack the whole shebang to keep us grounded, cutting right through the noise to get straight to the facts. Let's dive right in. All right, so here's our agenda for today. We're starting off with global diplomacy and conflict. From there, we'll shift gears into tech, AI, and markets. After that, we'll look at U.S. domestic policy shifts, and then we'll wrap it all up with sports and entertainment. Okay, Section 1. Global diplomacy and conflict. High stakes and flashpoints. Right out of the gate, we are seeing a really stark contrast in messaging out of the Middle East. President Trump has actually canceled planned overnight strikes, claiming at a tele-rally that we ended the war in Iran today. He stated a strong memorandum of understanding has been reached and that Vice President Vance could potentially sign a deal in Europe this coming weekend. But on the flip side, Iran's foreign ministry is aggressively pushing back. They're calling these reports merely speculation and explicitly stating that no final decision has been reached. Now, adding a pretty crucial layer of context to all this, Pakistan's prime minister stepped in today to confirm that the U.S. and Iran have indeed agreed on the wording of a deal to end the conflict, framing it as a major diplomatic win for Islamabad's mediation efforts. But, as analysts are quick to point out, just agreeing on the wording doesn't mean the whole thing is resolved. Key Trump administration objectives, things like strict constraints on Iran's nuclear program and the huge issue of reparations, those remain entirely unresolved in the current framework. And this really illustrates why global tensions are running so high right now. Because it's not just Iran. We've got 4 other massive flashpoints happening at the exact same time. Off the coast of Oman, U.S. strikes enforcing a blockade killed 3 Indian sailors, which prompted immediate condemnation and demands for answers from India. Over in Ukraine, the front line is literally shifting as we speak, as land-based ground drones are now being heavily deployed for logistics, evacuations, and even frontline assaults. Meanwhile, over in China, U.S. citizen and UC Berkeley researcher Yumin Zin has been detained on espionage charges. And finally, in Europe, the Pentagon formally notified NATO allies in writing that the U.S. will significantly reduce the aircraft and warships made available for European operations. The sheer scale of international friction today is just staggering. All right, moving on to Section 2, tech, AI, and markets, trillions and tech limits. So let's return to that crazy number we touched on at the very beginning. SpaceX officially debuted on the NASDAQ today under the ticker SPX. They priced the IPO at $135 a share, but it absolutely surged. It closed at $161. That's a 19% jump after hitting an intraday high of $176.52. This is the exact financial event that officially crowned Elon Musk, who, by the way, joined the opening bell remotely from Texas, the world's first trillionaire. And hey, don't overlook the fact that the underwriters, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, walked away with a cool $500 million in commissions. But look at how the broader market reacted to this. It was highly mixed. The Dow Jones managed to rise over 0.5%, but the S&P 500 was totally flat, and the NASDAQ actually slipped by 0.3%. You might be wondering why. Well, an IPO of this massive magnitude literally absorbs liquidity straight out of the rest of the market. It's like a giant financial sponge. Meanwhile, oil prices actually fell today, largely driven by the market's optimism surrounding that potential U.S.-Iran peace deal we were just talking about. Now, shifting from markets to the actual tech, we're seeing some serious growing pains in the AI sector. Anthropic announced that their most advanced model, Claude Fable, will remain unavailable to the public due to major cybersecurity concerns. They've actually locked it down under what they're calling Project Glasswing, making it available for trusted organizations only. At the exact same time, we're hearing a stark warning from a prominent UN scientist. They're calling the massive water, carbon, and land consumption required for AI data centers a new form of imperialism that disproportionately impacts developing nations. And this comes even as giants like Google are pledging to make their data centers water positive by 2030. Section 3. U.S. domestic policy shifts, expirations, and etchings.
Let's bring it back stateside to D.C. First and foremost, FICE's Section 702 has officially expired. Congress just left for recess without renewing it. To put that into perspective, the government states this specific surveillance authority accounts for over 60% of the intelligence in the president's daily briefing. So, yeah, that is a massive gap in domestic surveillance capability. At the same time, President Trump has nominated former SEC Chair Jay Clayton to be the next Director of National Intelligence. This move comes after he completely withdrew the nomination of Bill Pulte, who is facing some really significant bipartisan pushback. We're also looking at a pretty major juxtaposition regarding environmental policy today. The Trump administration is actively moving to downsize the U.S. Forest Service, and that actually includes eliminating vital wildfire and smoke research programs. What's wild is that this is happening right as Canada reports 95 active wildfires, with 44 of those currently burning completely out of control. Forecasters are already sounding the alarm about an intensifying, severe summer fire season across the whole continent. And then there is this bizarre mystery gripping the Capitol. Who etched 8647 into the grass of the National Mall? These massive numerals, which make up a phrase generally associated with opposition to President Trump, just appeared overnight. They're literally large enough to be clearly visible from the sky. And as of right now, absolutely no group has stepped forward to claim responsibility. It's a total whodunit.
Okay, let's wrap things up with Section 4, Sports and Entertainment, High Scores, and New Tech.
With massive crowds gathering for the World Cup right now, public health officials came out to confirm that measles, not Ebola, not hantavirus, is actually their primary disease concern. They've stated the hantavirus risk remains very low and strict Ebola screening protocols are fully operational at all entry points. Interestingly, though, connecting right back to our domestic news, FIFA still hasn't released their contingency protocols for wildfire smoke for those upcoming matches in Vancouver and Toronto.
Out on the pitch, it was a huge opening day. The U.S. men's national team absolutely dominated Paraguay with a 4-1 victory at SoFi Stadium in California. This is a massive moment for us, as it's the first time the U.S. has hosted a World Cup match on home soil in 32 years. And up north, Canada played their first ever home World Cup match, securing a hard-fought 1-1 draw with Bosnia and Herzegovina over in Toronto. All right, 1973. That is the last time the New York Knicks won an NBA championship. But tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC, they have a real chance to end that drought. The Knicks are up 3-1 against the Spurs and are traveling down to San Antonio for Game 5. Following that historic 29-point comeback on Wednesday, a win tomorrow secures the title. I mean, New York fans are absolutely buzzing right now.
And for all you tech fans out there, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference officially wrapped up today. The developer labs for their brand new Liquid Glass UI design language have concluded. Looking ahead, you can expect the iOS 27 public beta to drop in July, leading right up to the massive fall release alongside the new iPhone hardware. So, we've covered a staggering amount of ground today. And honestly, this brings us to a crucial final question for you to chew on. From a literal $1 trillion space IPO and warnings of AI imperialism, to sudden unprecedented shifts in geopolitical alliances and huge domestic surveillance gaps, are our global institutions actually adapting fast enough to handle this rapidly accelerated reality? Take that question with you today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.